Okay, so I want to tell a little story about this sergeant I used to know in the army named Sergeant Fleming. Now, I usually talk about shitbag soldiers. I don't usually talk about shitbag NCOs, mostly because I was in one of the best units in the army. Yeah, 215 Field Artillery. We had a lot of quality leadership, good officers and NCOs, but there were always those bad apples. And Sergeant Fleming was this like old black lady. She looked like she was about 70 years old. I don't know how somebody that old got in the army, but she was one of the NCOs when we were on Rear D. When we first got the drum, everyone was coming back from their Iraq deployment. And she was about the most useless NCO I've ever seen, if not the most useless. She did literally nothing. She never did anything NCO related. Nothing. She would just sit at the CQ desk all day long with a fucking yarn and a pair of knitting needles, just knitting all day long. Or reading the Bible. I guess she was like really religious. And she would barely speak to anybody. Just sit there with the knitting in the Bible all day and all night. What the fuck is she doing here? I don't get it. Who is this lady? And she also happened to be kind of dumb. She reminded me of that lady Mary, the Haitian cleaning lady I did the story about. You can get away with anything when she's on duty because she's just a moron. Like this one night where I was on CQ and you're not supposed to drink under 21, of course. But of course, no one follows that, and everyone knows that, 18, 19-year-old soldiers get drunk. But the rule is basically if you're going to drink and you're underage, stay in your room. And even if you come out of your room, don't cause any trouble, and no one will care. Just drink quietly and shut the fuck up. But this one kid, he missed that memo. So he gets completely shit-faced to the point where he can barely walk, right? Idiot. And he's like stumbling around the barracks, just yelling and doing and saying dumb shit. And then all of a sudden, Sergeant Fleming walks up. He's like, "What's going on here?" And I'm like, "Is this soldier drunk?" I'm like, I know. "Well, what you mean? He sure look drunk. Why he stumbling like that?" Said, he's got a inner ear problem, Sergeant. He has a problem with his eardrum and he can't balance. And she goes, "Oh, all right. Well, you tell him. I hope he okay. I hope you okay, soldier." And she just like walks away. You could smell the alcohol on this kid from like 10 feet away. But she just bought that when I told her he had like an ear problem. Really? Uh, and another time, we had this guy named Bledsoe, right? This big, crazy motherfucker from Texas, from Houston. This is another shitbag that got chaptered within a year. He was cool. He was cool as shit. But he was shitbag. And this guy would get drunk as fuck every weekend. Another resident alcoholic. And somehow he ends up like slashing his fucking arm open. Whether it was with a broken bottle or what. But his fucking arm is bleeding right onto the floor. And she walks in his room and goes, "Why his arm bleeding? What's going on?" And everybody's like, "It's not bleeding." And they managed to convince her that his arm isn't really bleeding, even though she's looking right at it. Like, what the fuck, is this lady blind? She's old and she's blind, apparently. Jesus Christ. And then after Rear D, I never saw her ever again. I don't even know if she's still alive. She might be like 80 or 90 by now. Yeah, I don't even know. But yeah, that was my little story about this weird sergeant I used to have, Sergeant Fleming, who was totally useless and apparently blind and stupid on top of it and would believe anything you told her. What a girl. What a fucking girl.